You all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for showing up. Nice to see you today. I'm going to do something a little bit different the first 10 minutes. I just kind of want to throw it out to you all, just my strategy, some of the inside planning and how I run this for the last, 15 years this time. But I usually just ramble for 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe, just to give time for anybody who still is coming in for meditation, and then we start the meditation. In case you, I was just thinking about you two. And here you are. How y'all doing? Great. You're good. You're here. Kids are good? All right. Just so y'all know. But I want to throw it out to you. I was thinking today because 21 years ago today, at least that's what Facebook tells me. So if Facebook tells it to you, then it's clearly correct. How would we know anybody's birthdays anymore without that, you know? And they've even made it easy for you, and they give you an automated response to just click on and wish somebody happy birthday. At least have the decency to change it and create your own little message, you know? All right. 21 years ago today, I started at Shifeng Temple down the street, and that was kind of, for me, my formal beginning to this Buddhist path, Buddhist practice, Buddhist life. And so I was thinking about that this morning because it popped up, on Facebook, and it made me realize, what life is like, because we can see it there. And so I started to kind of go through my head of things in my life that I've changed in the last 21 years. And so what I want to throw out to you all, and many of you have been here for a long time, listened to me for years, some of you may be here. Anyone here for the very first time, day one? Well, welcome. Day one. There's hope for you, I promise. But what I want to throw out to you all is, what in your life have you changed? Because as I'm always talking about, we listen to the Dharma, which is the teachings of the Buddha. We do a meditation practice because everybody's stressed out and anxious and angry and sad and depressed or whatever emotions you're dealing with. And then I ramble, and then you ask questions, and then I ramble, and then everybody leaves. And as I'm always talking about, it's okay, well, that's fine when we're in here, but what is changing in your life? Because if you're not making changes outside of here, then this practice doesn't do anything for you. And I know for certain that many of you have made changes in your life, large or small. But I want to kind of take a few moments here, just for anyone who wants to share, and let's keep it relatively brief. What do you change? What has changed in your life? What are you aware of? What's different? How has meditation, and more specifically, what these teachings are all about, generosity, compassion, wisdom, diligence, concentration. How has this changed you? Yeah.
Acceptance. I just accept things so much easier and realize there's nothing I can do about it until I don't. So again, that's made a big difference in the last year that I've been coming here.
Great. Thank you. What else?
I'm much calmer and I lack ambition, which is a good thing.
Yes, to a point, for those who know. The secret is not that we're trying to get rid of all your ambition, just so you know. But for many of us, it's a good. Oh, go ahead.
The insane striving, eating yourself up.
Yeah.
The benchmarks that are fake.
Definitely. Yeah, that can drive us crazy. What else?
So much gratitude in little things and big things.
Gratitude and what was the last thing?
And big things.
Big things, yeah.
Little
And big things, yeah. What else?
I'm very cognizant of impermanence. It keeps coming up for me. And in the past, I would freak. And now I can go inside and realize that everything is impermanent. And it's helped me a lot.
Beautiful.
I'm not perfect with it.
Thanks.
I'm feeling more patient. Like before I react to something, I'll go, am I being kind? Am I being too reactive? So I pause more frequently.
Thank you.
For me, it's one is awareness of myself and my thoughts. That I could be in a calm state and through thoughts get to myself so agitated, and the only thing that happened was just my thoughts. And the other thing is like compassion or doing, right? Not just thinking the world would be better, but also making sure like just a to-do list, like what have I done, and contributing to things that I care about, but being aware that I'm doing it regularly, not just when it's once a year or just a year, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. What else?
Less anxious and more accepting.
Less anxious, more accepting.
Aware of my actions this week, my company was going to overpay me on something, and one of the precepts is to not steal. And I called it out and said, I don't think you're supposed to pay me this money. And it turned out they actually were, but I ended up saying, hey, is this right or is this wrong?
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks.
Now I forgot what I was.
It's all right.
Well, basically, I feel like I learned to trust myself more, so I'm less affected by what other people around me think or say. So that was a big positive change, and I feel like in my personal relationships, I finally started to understand what unconditional love is.
Thank you.
More kindness and compassion for other people, and a lot less judgment of other people.
I was going to say the same thing, just that when people are mistreating me in my mind, being aware that everybody else around me is suffering, and that things that appear to be directed at me are not personal, they're not attacks on me, they're just manifestations of other people's suffering.
Thank you. Steve? Oh, that was Dave. Okay. Yeah.
Forgiveness for myself and forgiveness for others.
Thank you. Anybody else? Virtually, same to all you joining virtually. Glad you're here. Sorry I've ignored you to this point. Feel free if you want to share. There's a couple comments here. The practice has helped me to unattach and be more aware of my unhealthy attachments in the moment. Beautiful. And another one, brought more kindness, patience, and genuine sense of caring about my life and the world around me. Thank you. What else?
I think with the impermanence, also being much more aware of the preciousness of the current moment and being like with someone in that moment.
For sure. Thank you.
I think for me, it's allowing me to take when I would want to react in anger, to take a pause and then reflect on myself, and then also why I'm angry. And realize that 95% of the time it's not me. And to be able to take that pause and then come back and be as kind, as compassionate as possible.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have less negative thoughts.
Less negative thoughts.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wait till somebody pre-annoys me.
What was that last part? You wait till someone what?
Pre-annoys me.
Pre-annoys you. I've never heard that before. To be pre-annoyed?
Sometimes you just wake up and you're the first person that is around.
Yeah.
You're already annoyed.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, we can maybe end on this one, but have you already told yourself you're just going to be annoyed at the first person who walks in, so whoever walks in is the winner? Yeah, that's great. I don't meet with people anyways, but if I did, we'll do it in the afternoon. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just to tag on to that, just staying in the present and not replaying conversations, good or bad, or the future. This is the law of not being present, and being present keeps the anxiety and worry and the gratitude all over.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? So, yeah. Oh, no. I was actually just going to say to those who are new, when you hear all that, what do you think?
Sounds amazing. Seems like the right place.
Yeah. In 3 weeks, you can have it all.
Money back guaranteed.
Money back guaranteed, exactly. Yes. Yeah. What do you think? Since we have 2 new people I'm picking on. Yeah. You hear that? What do you think?
Sounds like a beautiful community of healing.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share before we go on?
Just accepting things and people for how they are, and feels like I'm much more go with the flow. It feels like I'm riding a wave, and if at any point throughout my day it feels like I'm off the wave, take time to reflect and think like, okay, well, why am I stopped up?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Thank you.
Similar to what I have as a base, just creative forces, what I follow through. How I found the Buddha a few years ago when I was Swedenborg, and it's a compliment.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Anyone else?
I can notice much faster when I'm losing the balance of my mind before it goes too far. So I recognize the habit patterns that lead to imbalance. So earlier.
Yeah.
Just getting balance.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have one more thought.
Yeah.
To truly assess how I've changed, I have to ask my wife and my kids.
Yes. They will say you have changed, I'm sure. Yes.
I don't know.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, beautiful. Thank you all for sharing. I mean, again, I guess I just wanted to make sure this shit actually works after the last 20 years. And decide if I'm just going to skip town and travel the world for the next 20 years or keep doing this for 20 years. So thank you for confirming that. I guess I'll stick with this path and practice because I guess it does work. But I think it's, often I'll say, why are you here? And I ask people to kind of reflect on that if you even for those who don't share. But to me, I think this is a little bit deeper than just why did I show up here on a Saturday morning. It requires, and I think that's a big part of any spiritual journey, is it requires us to look at, okay, how is this actually impacting my life? And very often we don't stop to reflect on that. We're kind of just go, 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 and then Saturday comes or whatever day you come here and you kind of just do it and then you keep going. But it's important, I think, for everyone always to reflect on, how is this actually impacting my life? How is this changing my life? Because you'll have days that still just kind of suck and you feel miserable and you're depressed and you're sad and you're like, my life is falling apart and everything's over. And those are moments where you have to kind of come back to like, okay, that's just one moment, one day. And remind yourself why you're doing this and how you have actually changed. And that hopefully will continue to deepen that motivation and inspiration to continue to practice. And I can speak for all the people that you know who are not here. I'm sure they're all grateful that you are here. So on behalf of all the people that you would normally piss off, thank you for pissing them off less. So, all right, so we'll start, or I guess we'll continue with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are in a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you are seated, also just trying to sit up straight if comfortable. Relaxing the shoulders, however is comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. Hands can be in the knees or lap, wherever you'd like to rest them. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means you need to move. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. slowly open the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. Most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external situation. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get every single day. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. Well, the mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by absolutely nothing, and disturbed by absolutely no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is initially. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It simply creates space for you to begin to realize that your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can actually make changes in your life. This is direct perception into the present moment and dealing with life as it arises. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's simply sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody you encounter every moment of your life, including yourself. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to life around us, things get simpler. But again, it's a practice, requires patience, requires effort. But keep at it. Keep making changes in your life so your life is better. And if you make changes in your life so your life is better, then those you know and love, you can help make their life better. And those you don't know and don't love, you can also help make their life better. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really always prefer just responding to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with, and we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions. And again, to those joining virtually, welcome, glad you're here. Feel free to say hello as you are in the chat box. If you have any questions, you can put them there and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll open up to questions.
touch a little bit on impermanence or any recommended reading on that. Kind of for the first time in my life, kind of got face to face with my mortality because of a diagnosis, so I'm kind of processing that whole idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question around impermanence, and I just repeat it for those joining virtually, maybe didn't hear. Question around impermanence, and for the first time in your life, a recent diagnosis, which has you, facing your mortality. And so any suggested readings or things like that. So here's the thing, and you know me long enough, so let me finish this whole train of thought before, you run out leaving after my first comment. We're all dying. Every moment, we're one moment closer to death. We don't know when it is. Could be today, could be 50 years from now. We have no idea. So the Buddhist teaching very clearly around impermanence is that all conditioned phenomena is subject to change. And the one thing that we tend to cling so dearly to is our physical form body, because we think that's what matters. And in the Buddhist teachings, that's not what matters. Ultimately, in the Buddhist teachings, what matters is your consciousness and your thoughts and your words and your actions. This body has come together for a period of time, will work to varying degrees for a period of time, and then will cease to exist. That's just the cold, harsh reality. For me, that's why I love Buddhist teachings, is it's not here to, I loved all the beautiful things everybody said, but the Buddhist teachings aren't here to make us feel better. They're here to make us face reality. And if we can face reality as it is, by default, we fight with reality less and we feel better. So, there's a Buddhist teaching where a woman comes to him with a young child that had passed away, and she wanted the Buddha to bring back the child. And the Buddha's like, I'm not a god, I'm just some dude. He probably didn't say I'm just some dude, but in whatever would have been appropriate at that time, he said, I'm just a person. But what I'd like you to do is go to the house of everybody and collect a mustard seed from someone who hasn't known death. And comes back with no mustard seeds, to remind us that we are all impermanent. And for me, this idea of a diagnosis and when we're dying, in a way, I wish somebody would tell me when I was dying, because then I'd maybe stop wasting my time doing stupid shit.
I wish somebody would tell me that too, but
we're all going to get there. And the disease, the ill, the sickness, the pain, the suffering, that stuff's not fun. But that is also part of, that's the first thing the Buddha said, is, life is filled with dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. So the practice is, what do we do with that? Once we are born, we are guaranteed death. That's what the Buddha taught. We cannot escape it. So, for me, anytime situations like this come up, the practice is to recognize, okay, well, what if I just had today to live? Right? I've been working in recovery environments for 25 years, and there's a book they read, some of you may not know it, but it's called Just for Today. And it's kind of a short little reading. And what if today was your last day? How would you live today? Would you, all the things everybody shared at the beginning, yourself included, would you worry about all those things that you're worried about? Would you carry those angers and grudges and get pissed off because your sandwich was made the wrong way or somebody's in traffic driving how you don't want them to? Or would you realize today is my last day? I'm going to enjoy today. So use it as motivation and inspiration to enjoy each moment. And maybe we live for a day, maybe we live for 50 years. We don't know. Yeah. What else?
without being being naive about the past. If that makes sense.
Yeah, don't be naive about the past. It's funny because being in the moment, like, it's one of those kind of like cliche things that people throw around, like being in the moment, and people are like, am I in the moment?
Right.
Then we're like thinking about it. Look at me, I'm in the moment. I'll often talk about being present and enjoying each moment, but ultimately, yes, the teachings are about staying present with each moment, but the reality is we're all miserable at that. So let's stop. My suggestion is stop trying to be in the moment as if it's some analytical, intellectual thing. Even just the language, and I know sometimes I bounce around in the way I present this, but experience each moment as it arises. And if in each moment you're thinking, I'll talk about the past part in a minute, but if in each moment you're thinking about the past, then recognize in this moment, I am present, in this moment experiencing my mind thinking about the past. The mistake, or I think not necessarily mistake, but I think the confusion here maybe around this is that very often this idea of staying present and experiencing present moment might lend to get one to think that we're not supposed to think about the past. The past is very important. It all happened. It all happened completely differently from how you perceive it. Right? The thing that happened to you 20 years ago, do you know how many stories you've told yourself about it? And how many times that story has changed? And if you're in a good mood, you're more accepting of it. And if you're in a bad mood, it was the most tragic thing that ever happened to you. From yesterday to this morning to 20 years ago to our entire life. So this idea, and this is for anybody who might be newer to this too, this idea of staying present doesn't mean the past doesn't exist. It doesn't mean we shouldn't look there. I've done so many stupid things in my life. And if I, and you used the word naive, if I pretend that those things didn't happen or it's in the past, then I'm not taking ownership for the things I've done. I have caused tremendous harm in people's lives from stupid things that I have done. I have to look at that honestly and be aware of that and learn to not allow that to affect me today and going forward. Right? But anyone ever done anything wrong in here? And then just looked at somebody and be like, it's over, it's done, it's in the past, get over it. How do you like it when people tell you to get over it? Right? It usually makes you want to do stuff you shouldn't do. So it's not about getting over things, right? But it's about understanding that we've caused pain and people have done things that, cause us to feel pain. Look at the past, learn from it. Don't, the vow to not make the same mistakes again, to not do the same, cause the same harm, those things are important. I'm also not a fan of the phrase of letting it go because to me, in a way, it's just kind of condescending. It's like, yeah, I harmed you, let it go. No, I don't want to let it go. It hurts. So we should allow people to feel the pain that we caused and see it and explore it and be with it. Don't be naive to the past, nor the future. If we don't think about the fact that, we should probably eat in the future, then we're going to get really ill. So future is important, past is important. But the only moment that we actually have is this moment. And we have no idea what we're going to eat in the future, or where we're going to go, or how we're going to be. And the stories in the past, like I said, they've already changed 50 times in your head from this morning. So look at all those things, but the only way we can control anything in the future is to be aware of what we think, say, and do in this moment. What else?
I'm practicing being content. Contentment, big word. It's hard to do. But at the same time, I'm ambitious. You see, how can I make it even?
The balance? Yes, the question was around that you're practicing contentment, but also trying to be ambitious. And so how do you find balance between the two? And that's similar to what I'm talking about is that kind of the earlier comment about, not just being okay with how things are. Like for people who are incredibly motivated, incredibly driven, set these lofty goals, It's not that those are bad or wrong, but one can kill themselves trying to achieve so much. And then we get to the end, and it's like I've just destroyed myself for 40 years for what? When I'm miserable. So this idea of contentment, I don't know what a word I like best, but I think for me, present, gratitude, and appreciation, contentment almost sounds, and again, everybody uses, word semantics obviously differently, but to me, contentment is just like, it just has like more of a negative connotation to it, where if we have gratitude and appreciation for where we are, but at the same time, we still have goals and aspirations and ambitions, that's wonderful, but some of them you'll accomplish and achieve, and some of them you'll fail miserably at. Can you be okay with both of those? So it's not about, again, for those who maybe haven't heard this, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but it's not about not having ambitions or not setting goals or not working towards things. But just know that they're not all going to play out the way you want them to. And to me, the balance is actually just like have gratitude for everything you have right now, which is what I think you're talking about. And then you're going to work on being kinder, gentler, happier in the future. Beautiful. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. So I think the balance is more in not so much the action of gratitude or ambitions, but the balance is more in the embracing of how it turns out.
No one else is talking. I was kind of curious about using a mantra while we meditate, for instance.
Yeah.
And a while back I took on the Om Mani Padme Om, which is the Buddhist mantra, one of them, I guess. And it helps me a lot to do that. It takes the thoughts out of the meditation. And I was just wondering if why we don't do that here, or is it not part of your teachings? Or
Yeah.
I mean, we're free to do it if we want.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was reciting Coca-Cola in my head for 20 minutes. I don't know about you all. I have my mantra, So the question for those who didn't hear it is around mantras. For you were taught Om Mani Padme Hum, and so you're curious about mantras. Are they beneficial? Why don't we do them here? Why don't I lead them, etc. So a couple things. One, for those who don't know, Om Mani Padme Hum is considered the great compassion mantra of Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, the one who's in the middle here. So her name means hearer of the world's cries. She hears all the suffering in the world, and she pours out compassion to heal, thus the vase, either holding or pouring out compassion. Om Mani Padme Hum literally translates to the jewel in the lotus. And so it is, like I said, it is the great compassion mantra within Buddhism. Buddhism has many mantras. And I'll talk specifically about how to utilize them in meditation in a moment. But I remember somebody asked my master a question a long time ago, and the response was, it doesn't matter if you recite the name of Amitabha Buddha. It doesn't matter if you recite the name of Jesus. It doesn't matter if you recite the name of Coca-Cola. What matters is, where's your mind? Where's your intention? Where's your focus? So from a practical standpoint, yes, using mantras can be very beneficial, because if you recite Om Mani Padme Hum over and over and over again, if you recite Coca-Cola over and over and over again, where's your thoughts? On what you're repeating. And if your thoughts are on what you're repeating, what are you not thinking about? everything else. So from a practical standpoint, repeating a mantra, yes, can be very beneficial, right? If you learned meditation in the 60s, you would have learned, transcendental meditation. You would have spent thousands of dollars on it, and they would have given you, even still today, and they would have given you your own secret mantra, which you can't tell anybody, right? And so some believe, and even within Buddhism and spiritual practices, that there's powers in the mantra and in the prayers themselves. And that's a beautiful practice. And some believe that they're just things to recite. And so I'm not one to say which is right or wrong or good or bad. I have no idea. To the question of, for me as a practitioner, it's not my personal practice. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily share it. For me as a Zen practitioner, I'm just training the mind to focus on sensation of breath. So for me, the sensation of breath, the feeling of it, the sound of it, the smell of it, the sight of it, the experience of breath, that would equate to my mantra, awareness of breath. But for a lot of people who have a really difficult time sitting in silence, right, working with active and veteran population with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, silence for them, just anyone who's gone through trauma, silence with your eyes closed can be torture. 30 seconds of silence with your eyes closed can be torture. So having a mantra is a really beautiful thing to focus on. So you're not focused on, as you said, everything else. We focus on the past, how do we tend to feel?
Just bad.
Bad.
It usually comes into negativity.
Right, because God forbid we should focus on anything good in the past. Right? But anger, sadness, depression, that's all in the past. Stress, anxiety, fear, worry, that's always in the future. So these mantras, these guided meditations, these visualizations, these imageries, these candles, these flowers, these tankas, whatever we use to stay focused on, allows us to be present in this moment. And therefore we're not in the past or the future. So they can be really wonderful and beneficial. My suggestion always for those people who have a really, like if I said, when I just said sitting in silence for, a short period of time is torture, if your thought from me saying that was yes it is, then my suggestion is to try it. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever you're comfortable with. Because if sitting in silence is torture, then that's where your work is. And if we're always using, this is kind of my argument to the other side, if we're always using mantras, we're always using guided meditations, we're always using something to escape to, then what are we actually doing? We're always escaping from what's in our head. So I think a balance for those who have guided meditations or mantras, I always suggest a balance to see if I just sit here and shut up and I'm left with my own thoughts and no mantra, what is that like? And if that's scary, then that's your message to hold up, literally put a mirror in front of you, like a physical mirror, and stare at it. And make that your meditation practice. Yeah. What else? We'll do one more. Yeah.
How can you tell the difference between dissociating and just having an empty mind where it is calm?
Yeah, so the question is, how can you tell the difference between dissociating and just having an empty mind where it is calm? I think that's, one for me without, I probably don't have to say this, but obviously I have no idea what anybody else's mind is like. Half the time I don't know what my mind is like. So it's really hard for me to say this is disassociation and this is an empty mind. But what I would caution, and this may or may not be relevant to your question, but I'll just say this to start, is that there's this idea in meditation that people think that their minds are going to empty or go blank. Never going to happen, my friend. There's one time and one time only that your mind will be empty and blank, potentially. And that's when? Birth. Not birth. Death. Right? If you get into reincarnation, rebirth, continuation of consciousness, then it's not even at that time. But if you come from this belief that hey, we're alive and then we die and then we're going to heaven or hell, whatever that belief is, that when we die and we're done, then the mind will stop. But our entire lives, our mind is going to continue to race and have thoughts and work. That's what it does. Sitting in silence and doing meditation doesn't mean your mind stops or goes empty. You're not trying to empty it. You're actually trying to see it, listen to it, pay attention to it, not go blank. For me, and I share this as an example very often, but what I'm working on as a practitioner, breath in, breath out, thought arises, say it's hunger. Recognize thought, release, back to breath. Breath in, breath out. I'm focused on that. Next thought, and the thoughts are quick. Hunger, recognize hunger, release it, back to breath. That's what I want to do. What I don't want to do, thought arises, hunger, I'm hungry. What do I want to eat? I want a burrito. I'm going to go to Pokies. I want chips, I want sauce. And so for one single thought of hunger, I'm sitting there thinking about a burrito I want to eat. And now I'm hungrier than I was 5 minutes ago. Now, why is this important? You ever been angry about something for like 10 years? And where does that anger start with? One what? One thought. So if you think about something that makes you angry, from 10 years ago as an example, you can turn that one thought into 10 thoughts, into an hour of thoughts, into a week of thoughts. And then we sink into a deep depression because we just spent weeks thinking about something that happened 10 years ago. Or we can recognize the thought of what happened and say, I'm going to choose to think about something else. Right? Can you see what's on the wall behind you without looking? No. Is it there?
Yes.
Yeah. And if you turn to look at it, you can see it. So for me, thoughts are the same thing. The thoughts are there. We have the ability to choose what thoughts we want to focus on and what we don't want to focus on. To me, it's kind of like the question about the past. What's behind us on the wall is the past. And when I want to turn around and look at it, it's there. So that's, to me, I think, an important distinction in, it doesn't address the dissociation part you're talking about, but an important distinction in the fact that this idea that our mind is somehow just going to go empty or blank, that just doesn't work that way. You know? And I think disassociation, I'll kind of close with this thought, we do have to be very careful with that because there's this idea around Buddhism, especially for those who might be newer to it, that you're kind of like, and I didn't correct it earlier, but the question about unattached, it's not unattached, it's non-attachment. So this practice isn't about like disassociating from reality. It's understanding that there is a reality, but our perception of reality isn't correct. We're stuck in our thoughts. We all perceive things differently. One day, you ever wake up and, talk to somebody you really like? And then all of a sudden they pissed you off. How do you feel about them? Right? So the reality changes. We like a certain food one day, we don't like it the next day. Our perception of reality changes. Thich Nhat Hanh said all views are wrong. And to me, what he meant by that, my interpretation of that is not that our views are going to abandon or disappear, but that our views are simply our views, and we're stuck on them. So Buddhist practice definitely is not about detaching or cutting off from the world. It's actually paying absolute deep attention to everything that's occurring and kind of throwing yourself into it, not cutting off from it.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Can I regurgitate what
Yeah,
I think
please.
I understand? So instead of not having any thoughts, you would go from being on stage and living the thoughts to being in the audience and just watching. Like, just observing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I thought when you said that, I thought you were talking about me, literally, and that's what threw me off for a minute.
Sorry.
I was like, wait, so am I supposed to go out there and watch this now? Because that'd be tough. But yes, that's it. The key word, what brought me back to understanding what you were saying, I think, was the observer. So that's very often you'll hear that as an absolute reference of what we're learning to do, is we're becoming the observer of the thoughts. Because our thoughts are just, you'll see a lot of metaphors in Buddhist teachings like airplanes flying overhead. And as the airplane goes directly over your head, it gets louder and louder, and then it gets quieter. Right? Clouds passing by, things like that. Like we become the observer of our thoughts, not acting on every single one of them. Imagine if you didn't act on all of your thoughts. You know that it's possible, right? I mean, imagine how much less dumb stuff we would do if we didn't act on every single thought we had. So yes, learning to become the observer of our thoughts is a great way to kind of frame. Yeah, I should have just said that. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. A few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We just take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from a different Buddhist tradition and their own experience. Every Thursday, 4:30, we do, I think, probably the best thing around here. It's a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on the streets every night. So anytime you think your life sucks, feed people who sleep on a sidewalk every night. It tends to put things into perspective. So a couple of things out of the ordinary. We started last week for Wednesday nights for the rest of the year. Bob was going to keep going for another 6 weeks, but they were doing some traveling. He had a procedure done. So we're doing a Wednesday night guest speaker series. Last week we started with Alex. He told the life story of the Buddha, which is always beautiful. This coming Wednesday, Brother Michael, who was a monk at Deer Park for, 10, 15 years. He's taught here on and off for a while over the years, but he'll be back this Wednesday. He's a veteran, like I said, was a monk at Deer Park under a disciple of Thich Nhat Hanh, trained very closely with Thich Nhat Hanh, and then maybe a handful of years ago or so, disrobed, meaning he just decided to live no longer as a monk, and he works for the VA because his focus was on helping veterans. So he does beautiful work. He'll be here this Wednesday. Some of you have probably seen him. And then just kind of keep checking the social media or website for the Wednesday speakers. Other than that, we have right outside this door, there's a flyer there for Friday the 25th at 4 o'clock. We have a beautiful opportunity to help Trans Family Support Services. They're having what they call the Boo Bash, which is a fun Halloween activity on that Saturday for kids. And those of us who helped, with Pride Parade cleanup or the Pride Festival cleanup, we took down like tons of green screens, which are the screens that go on fences to create privacy and stuff. So this Friday at 4 o'clock, the 25th, we're going to hang them up. We're going to meet in Hillcrest here at the Pride Flag, which is the corner of Normal Street University. But the reason I mentioned the flyer, if you have a cell phone, anyone have a cell phone, that flyer has a QR code on it. Scan it, it'll take you 3 seconds to RSVP. I told Bob, who, we are forever indebted to for so many reasons, that we would have 20 volunteers Friday the 25th at 4 o'clock to hang green screens on fences. It is relatively simple. It's also a fun, cool thing. You get to socially engage with people. You get to hang out while you hang screens. So I think we have 5 people signed up right now. We need 15 more. So I'll be pushing that pretty heavily. So please make my life easier. I got a bunch of other shit to do. I'd much rather do that than try to get people to sign up to hang screens. So thank you all. Buddha for you is down there if you need anything. Wish you well.